Hello chess friends and welcome to Jozarov chess channel and welcome to the most spectacular game of the day 2 of the Meltwater Champions Chess Tour finals in 2022. We have here Anish Giri versus Ramesh Babu Praggnanandhaa, and in my opinion this was simply the best game of this event so far. Put your seatbelts on, be prepared. This is simply Anish Giri from another dimension. This is Anish Giri in sort of a Mikhail mode, in sort of a really brutal attacking mode. But here Anish Giri had to play the game like this because the first two games Pragg won, so it was simply now time for Anish Giri to make something out of this. If he makes a draw here or if he loses the game, then of course Pragg is the winner of their match. So let's check out now the game. As I said, this was simply brilliant chess. So here Danish opened with the move d4, knight to f6 was response by Pragg, c4 e6, knight to c3, bishop to b4. Again we have the nimzo-indian on the board. So they played also in the game one the nimzo-indian, in which I think in one particular moment Anish Giri had a better position, but it eventually pulled off this stunning tactic which actually didn't work, and then Pragg defended the position and won the game one. So let's see now what was again here Anish Giri's choice. Again he played the Kmoch variation with the move f3, preparing the central breakthrough with the move e4. We have now the move c5, again breaking the pawn chain in the center, of course battling against the d4 square. a3 challenging the bishop, bishop to c3, and after b takes c3, again I'm pointing out after knight to c6, okay, white has here the bishop pair, but has also messed up pawn structure, the double pawn structure on c4 and c3. So we have now e4, d6, bishop to e3, and now after move b6, again Pragg is playing the same move order like in the game one. He's trying to play the move bishop to a6, knight to a5, and hitting the bishop, hitting the pawn, pardon me, here on c4. So you can also check it out. I think these two games should be watched combined because you see how well prepared they are really in this opening. So here again Pragg is going for the c4 pawn, but of course here Anish Giri has some opportunities with knight to e2, knight to g3, with f4, f5 to break and enter here in the center of the board. So it's a really, as I said also in the game one, a double-edged opening line in which white is going to probably sacrifice even the pawn on c4, but for the initiative for really a massive pawn storm here on the king side. So we have bishop to d3, knight to a5, now comes this plan, knight to e2, and now after bishop to a6 simply hitting the pawn on c4. So we have now kingside castling. Here Anish Giri ignored the threat, leaves now the pawn on c4 unprotected, but now after move knight to d7, notice, okay, you can take the pawn, but now the pawns are storming, the pawns are coming now here on the king side. We have now f4 by Anish Giri, bishop to c4, and now comes already a critical moment of the game. Here many things can go wrong, I think, here for black. So okay, you gained the pawn, you took the pawn on c4, probably you would love to now go into an endgame and go into an endgame where you have a +1 pawn situation. But now from f5, here Ramesh Babu Praggnanandhaa didn't react correctly. He should have played queen to e7, keeping the queen connected to the e6 pawn, and after move queen to e7 you have a certain flexibility. If you get too attacked now on the king side, maybe you can even get out of the attack and castle queen side. I think this could be also a nice option here. So castling out of your opponent's attack. So this was one way to go. What you should not do here is immediately castling, because after immediately castling you get this stunning move, f6. f6 is a brilliant move which opens and cracks the position now in black's camp. You have to now take out with the knight if you don't want to have a messed up pawn structure. If you take out with the g pawn, g takes f6, then the bishop is coming really heavily into the game. The queen will follow up and you could have some darker problems. You could get even checkmated on g7. So that's why I think here you see kingside castling already devastating. You're playing maybe knight to f6, but look at this, bishop to g5 is coming, the rook is hitting the knight on f6, e5 comes as an idea. You cannot reroute the knight in order to defend your further knight on f6. So again, in my opinion, a devastating position here for black. So here after move f5, what Pragg did, and Pragg probably sensed, I cannot castle kingside, so that's why he took e takes f5. But this was again not good. So the only good move was actually queen to e7. I think Anish Giri has somewhere this opening line prepared. This is maybe his surprise weapon against the nimzo-indian. After e takes f5, now comes knight to g3, hitting the pawn on f5. Here it's a very wild gambit line. Now here two pawns were sacrificed by Anish Giri, but for a beautiful initiative and notice now that the king is also stuck in the center. So we have now f takes e4, knight to e4, hitting the pawn on d6, and look at this. White is here really already a beautiful piece activity. Both bishops very dangerous. Queen is coming into the game. Rook very active. Knight on e4 very active, hitting the pawn on d6. What can you do? If you try now maybe some ideas of queen to c7, if you're trying to protect now the pawn on d6 like this wasn't played in the game, but look what happens. The bishop to f4, and there's not a good way anymore to protect this pawn. If you play queen to e7, then it gets even wilder. You get bishop to g5. If you play f6, look, knight to f6 is simply opening now the position on the e file, and you're getting destroyed. You can maybe try knight to f6, but with rook to e1, it's game over. After g takes f6, you can even try maybe rook to e1, bishop to e6, but look at this now. With bishop to f5, d5, again, you lose simply the battle on the e file, so it's game over here for black. Look how already messed up this position can be. So that's why after move knight to e4, there was simply no time for Pragg to defend the pawn on d6, and now Pragg simple castled out of this attack and left now the pawn on d6 hanging. So we have now knight to d6 by Anish Giri. We have bishop to d3, queen to d3, and okay, when we watch now this position, okay, black gained the pawn, but we have to say black's pieces are a little bit misplaced. The knights are a little bit out of game. They're simply too far away from the action. There's simply too much here on the queen side. Now after knight to c6, here Pragg is trying of course to get the pieces into the game, but now look at this. With rook to e1 and knight to f5, now Anish Giri builds really an immortal, really wild attacking formation. The bishop is active on e3, the knight is active on f5, the queen is active, the rooks are on the best possible files here. So I would not love to play really this now game from black's perspective. It's really sort of a feeling that you could get destroyed in such a brutal way with this beautiful piece activity. So here, brilliant active play by Anish Giri. So c takes d4, c takes d4, and now after knight to f6, of course the knight is hanging. But of course knight to f5, knight gets simply on a good square. The pawn on g7 is weak. Bishop to h6 could come into the game. Rook to f3, rook to g3, rook to h3. These are, I think, the moves that we're trying to play. So it's now really devastating attack against the castle king position. So knight to e5, this was a good move by Pragg. You see, Pragg gets finally the knight into the game that was on the edge of the board. He gets a new defender into the game, and he can maybe try now some ideas of knight to g6, at least getting a new defender in front of the king. Now Anish makes his maybe first little inaccuracy. Queen to d1 he played, but actually with queen to b1 he should have stayed on this diagonal, and from this square he can also attack this diagonal, so the queen is a little bit more flexible on the square b1. Look what happens if you play now queen to b1. This wasn't again played in the game, but look how devastating, how really brutal this attacking formation of whites can be. If for instance black can play maybe this kind of an idea, knight to g4, attacking now the bishop on e3, but look at this, with bishop to g5 we're attacking now the g7, e7. You can maybe try g6, kicking away the knight, but now knight to e7. Look how really brutal this attack is. King to g7, queen to b2, with the preparation to play the move d5. Maybe you're getting new defenders into the game, but now look at this. You can even sacrifice here the rook for the exchange after something like king to f6 or something. You cannot take part me after rook to e7 or knight to f6. If knight to f6 happens, then it's game over, because after king to f6 you're getting d5, so the queen is coming into the game. You play sort of a zigzag motif, and now after queen to e5 this will be a checkmate. So if you play rook to e7 in this particular position, look what happens. Rook takes f7, comes now with the threat, with the check, with the fork here, with this attack, with this x-ray attack against the rook, with the attack against the queen. So it's really a brutal and immortal attack here by white. So that would be the continuation after queen to b1. I wanted to show you how really beautiful this piece activity by Anish Giri is, but he played queen to d1, which is not a bad move, but still white is staying here and plays an active game. Here in the continuation, knight to g4, attacking now the bishop to g5, and now queen to c7, getting out of the pin, and now rook to f4 here by Anish Giri, hitting the knight twice. Now he's threatening rook takes g4, after knight to g4 also then to take out the knight with the queen on g4, so white would gain two minor pieces for the rook, but these two minor pieces are very active. They're very active here against black's king, so you don't want to lose now these two knights, which are the only good defensive pieces in front of your own king. So that's why here again Ramesh Babu Praggnanandhaa had to make a defensive decision here. So he tried queen to c3, and this was now maybe even the main mistake here by black. You have to now include more pieces into the game. That's one of the basic rules of the defense. Whenever you feel that your opponent is getting more pieces into the attack, then you have to compete with your pieces. And now rook to e8, at least you're getting somehow into the game with this rook. You're protecting the very important e7 square, because in the previous tactical sequence we have seen that the knight on e7 was really an important move in white's attack. Rook to e8 was the way to go in order to defend the position. But now Praggnanandhaa played queen to c3, which wasn't good. He left now this knight unprotected. Even if you try, instead of this queen to c3 move, even if you try here ideas of h6, look how really brutal this attack can be. You can get destroyed with some Anastasia made checkmate patterns here. Rook to g4, knight to g4, queen to g4. You're taking maybe now the bishop on g5, but as I said, you have to compete with the move rook to e8. You have to play against this square e7. You have to protect the square. Now after knight to e7, you can maybe play king to h8, but now you get this beautiful Anastasia's checkmate, this beautiful checkmate pattern where the knight is controlling both of the squares, and with the queen or maybe with the rook it would be also possible. It would be a beautiful checkmate. So see, you cannot even play the move h6 in order to kick away the bishop here. You don't have time. So as I said, the only defensive move was actually the move rook to e8. But okay, here queen to c3 was played by Pragg. We have now rook to g4, knight to g4, and now bishop to d2, attacking the queen. Knight to f2. Here Pragg is trying to stay now somehow with his knights on the board, but now after king to f2 we have queen to d3, attacking now the knight on f5. But now a beautiful move by Anish Giri, a beautiful counter attack. He's not only protecting the pawn, the knight on f5, he's also threatening checkmate. And okay, you could maybe take out the bishop here on d2, but you don't have time. After queen to d2, you get rook to e2. Now you have to give up the queen for the rook, and now in this particular scenario, again, white should be much better. Still, there is this checkmate threat. You have a knight and the queen against both of this rook, so you have a passer on the d file. Whatever black is playing now, I think this should be a winning continuation here for white. So this is not working. So you see, after move queen to g4, you don't have time to take out the bishop, so that's why Pragg tried g6. Knight to e7. Again, this knight comes on this very important square. We have seen that really Pragg should have competed now with the move rook to e8. King to g7, queen to f4. Very important move here. Anish is trying to sneak in, of course, with the queen on dark squares, because with the move g6 you have already provoked some weaknesses in your camp. So that's why very natural idea here to place the queen like this with this bishop into this beautiful battery. We have now rook from a to d8, and now d5. This was a beautiful subtle positional move here by Anish. Look how glued together, how compact really these pieces are. Everything is protecting everything here. The knight is protecting the pawn, the queen is protecting the bishop is protecting the queen, the bishop is protecting the rook is protecting the knight. So everything is really so settled in this position. Now this passer is really dangerous. There's still, of course, the threat also of this annoying check here on h6. So in the continuation f6, here Pragg has to create some breathing spaces for the king. We have now king to g1, getting out of the attack, rook to f7, and now bishop to c1. Here Anish is trying to search for new opportunities. He's trying to reroute the bishop on a much more powerful diagonal here on the square b2. But you could have gone immediately h4. h4 would be also very interesting to play immediately. Now, for instance, after something like queen to a3, you have this idea. You can include more pieces into the attack. Now, after something like a5, look at this. The queen is coming into the game. If you try to escape, knight to g6 would be also an opportunity. So there are many tactical chances, I think, here for white. So that's why it's, in my opinion, here already a winning game for white. But okay, here bishop to c1 was played by Anish. He found at least a beautiful idea here, although as I said, h4 h5 would be also quite interesting here to see. So king to h8, we have now queen to c2, bishop to b2, pardon me, here by Anish Giri. I wanted to show you also how strong this attack by white is. You can maybe try this kind of idea. I've asked myself the question at home: why didn't Black play, for instance, this idea, rook to d7, attacking now this annoying knight on e7? So here in the game, Pragg tried king to h8, but look what happens. You played this one, knight to f5, would be here a brutal possibility. Queen to f5, queen to h6. You have only this square, and now with rook to e8, you're getting checkmated here. This would be a beautiful, beautiful continuation. So you see, Pragg sensed that his king is a little bit loose, so that's why he didn't play rook to d7. Here he played king to h8 and got out of this mess. This rook on d8 has to stay now on the 8th rank to protect really the back rank, because there are many tactical problems now in Black's position. So here finally bishop to b2, finally attacking the pawn on f6. We have king to g7 and now h4 with this idea to play h5, and if you pass through with the move g5, then actually queen to g5 would be possible, because you couldn't take the queen with the pawn on f6 because of the beautiful bishop's activity. So here Anish found again a beautiful way how to include more pieces into the game. We have rook to d7. Now there is no threat of queen to h6, so that's why finally Praggnanandhaa is attacking this annoying knight on e7. But now king to h2 was played here by Anish Giri, gets out of some potential checks. But again, h5 would be very interesting, because if you try something like, I don't know, rook to e7 here, again you have a beautiful monstrous tactical shot of bishop to f6. Now after rook to f6, the rook gets deflected from the defense of the rook on e7, and now rook to e7 simply wins the game, will pick up the rook, and the game should be over. So here after move h5, you could maybe try h6, but now we pick up simply this pawn. So again, it's a devastating position here for Black. So this move h5 was the way to go, but here Anish played king to h2, more solid line. But again, we can agree, I think, that White should be much better here. So in the continuation, we have now queen to c2. If you, for instance, try now to take out this one, as we said, you get simply queen to f6 or something, or if you take out with this one, again, this will simply take it out, and now with queen to f6, we're simply checkmating here Black. So again, you cannot take out the knight. The knight on e7 was the best knight that I've seen in my life, probably. So as I said also in the middle of this video, in one particular moment, Pragg should have simply played rook to e8, never ever allowed this knight to jump on e7. You see how many tactical problems this knight caused in the game. So as we said, queen to c2 was played, so there's no way that Black is taking out now the knight on e7. We have now this idea h5. We have now queen to c7, trying to simplify the game by trading off more pieces. We have now h6, kicking away the king, king to f8, queen to c7, rook to c7, and now d6. Really wild stuff. Still the knight is staying here on the board, so you cannot even take it. In the continuation, we have now rook to e7. Even if you play here rook to d7, then we simply play a4, and the problem is now rook to d6 is not working because of bishop to a3. So everything really well played here by Anish Giri. He saw every tactic here in the game. Really monstrous attack here by him. Congratulations for this beautiful game. So as I said, here d6 was played. Pragg had it enough. Took simply rook to e7. We have d takes e7, rook takes e7, and now after rook to d1. Okay, still Black has maybe some drawish chances, but in top grandmaster level, I think every grandmaster would win this game. So that's why here Anish tried to attack the pawn on f6. We have a rook to e6, rook to d7 after a couple of trades of rooks. Now the bishop is controlling this side of the board, and the king is getting closer. The f6 is weak, so it's now completely winning endgame here for White. So we have now king to f4, f5. Here Black is keeping all of the pawns on life squares, which is a good thing. They cannot be attacked, of course, by the dark square bishop. King to d5, king to d3, f4, bishop to f6, and now here Pragg is simply pushing the pawns further. White is controlling now this progress, and now after a4, we have now king to c3. In the continuation, we have now b4, a takes b4, king to b5, and still Anish took this pawn, has still the opportunity with bishop to e5 to catch up with the pawn on here a1, in this particular position. Ramesh Babu Praggnanandhaa resigns. So incredible game here by Anish. Immortal attack. I was really surprised when I saw this game, because I have to be honest, I've never seen Anish playing such brutal chess. Many times he's playing sort of solid positional chess, but this was simply Anish Giri that we want to see. This was a Mikhail Tal Anish Giri, really, really brutal attack, really beautiful tactical sequences he saw. I'm not sure now how the game, how the fourth game ended. If maybe Anish makes also the win in the fourth game, he could get an equal result against Praggnanandhaa. I'm not sure how the game ended. You can check it out, but so far it was a brilliant match between the two of them. We have seen a beautiful game by Pragg that he won, and now also really this brutal attack here by Anish Giri. So okay, I hope that you enjoyed the game. I really enjoyed it a lot. Interesting ideas here for sure. If you want to see more games from this event, check out my coverage so far with some other great games that we have seen before. Here are some links of some games that we have analyzed, and if you like this content, don't forget to subscribe to my channel. See you soon with some more videos, and what to say, chess is the best, of course.